The continuity of the teachings of enlightenment have evolved over thousands of years. And today we have what's called transformation. Transformation is probably the term coined by Werner Erhard when he created Erhard's seminar trainings. And the methodological approaches essentially took the years of meditative and enlightenment and transformed it into a seminar where this individual could take 150 people and introduce powerful dynamic exercises that he called distinctions. And using these exercises would literally start to pull apart all the reactionary dynamics that contribute to the experience of one's life. And he took many different philosophical approaches to organize and orchestrate a very, very powerful seminar that I believe over 800 or 900,000 people attended his seminar. And it was timed really good during a golden age in American history where, the era of the hippie, people being open-minded about different ways of exploring consciousness itself, where people were socially responsible, where the people could end a war. But things have changed since then. But ontological study is about the nature of being. And beingness is underneath psychology. And the approach of transformation is very different than psychology, because the truth of psychology is essentially the study of ego, where it doesn't acknowledge the temporary nature or the illusory nature of ego, where the power is displaced into past experiences of trauma, and people are stigmatized into powerful diagnoses that simply answer the question of what's wrong with me, where in ontological practice, the answer to something wrong with you is nothing at all, is the dismissal of letting go of what's wrong with you. The disappearance of the voice in your head is what transformation does. And so it produces the same experience of enlightenment, but it's not called enlightenment. The truth of the matter is that anything that produced any meaningful change within the architecture of the human experience caused the same experience. Whether it was through yoga, whether it was Hinduism or Buddhism, where Buddhism took meditative and enlightenment and took it out of the religious context and just focused upon the genesis of the experience itself, where that experience was not, at that time, something where people could see it being a bit of a salvation, if you will, because the personal pursuit and the amount of time and the likelihood of attaining enlightenment through meditation was low. That's all. That there's no guarantee that you'll achieve enlightenment from meditative practice. And many people use meditation, as a prescription to, relax the mind, to get out of anxiety, to gain self-awareness. But the experience of enlightenment is a real phenomenon that results in a profound change in consciousness. It is not an intellectual process of understanding that attains it. It is the disconnection from the need to understand it all, where the power of the brain is revealed in its capacity to generate awareness that happens seamlessly integrated into the view of life. And the subconscious, it doesn't exist in enlightenment because the person gains access to an expanded conscious experience that reconciles their ego, where their former experience of life is accounted for as an illusion, as a stuckness, as a pervasive state of suffering. But you see, the suffering of ego necessitates its own experience, meaning that people that suffer believe they suffer because of circumstance, because of past, because of trauma. And so their suffering is perfectly aligned with their view of life, thus negating the need for enlightenment, that would not apply to them, that they could see a Buddhist person say, I don't suffer. And they'd say, that's great for you. You don't have my mother-in-law. You don't have my boss. You don't have my trauma. And so the problem is that the experiences of people are unrelatable absent the experience having been attained by both parties. It's like me saying red to the colorblind. Well, they haven't experienced red, so the word, they can certainly conceptualize it. They could use it in sentences. In the same way that somebody who's a fan of the philosophical basis of Zen Buddhism may be completely outside the boundaries of the experience of enlightenment, but think that enlightenment is somehow attained by understanding philosophy or agreeing with it or believing in it. You see, the problem with belief is something that the mind does absent any experiential basis for its own assertions. See, beliefs become dogmas because they become righteous attachments. So people attach themselves to interpretations of teachings that would have been meant to produce this experience. And we can thank God for Buddhism because it was simply not, something that would be subjected to the same level of dogma that you find in the teachings within the Bible, where the teachings within the Bible point to the same phenomenon and use different words to describe it. But you see, the words will be interpreted within the constraints of ego, and the born-again experience is lost, where heaven is not synonymous with enlightenment and hell is not synonymous with suffering, where people just continue to suffer and throw in the towel on this life and diffuse responsibility with the future fake of heaven as a someday proposition simply for believing something. Where you could imagine a divine being only being preoccupied with what you believe and nothing else, absolving you of every responsibility and causality in life, except for, of course, the propagation of more believers. And so you retain the entitlement to persecute, retain the entitlement to any kind of inhumane treatment of others on the basis of your beliefs, while at the same time saying, well, we're all sinners, we all fall short, to avoid responsibility. And then you get the get out of jail free card of believing that, well, Jesus died for your sin so that you don't have to feel shameful anymore. Now he just keeps forgiving you. And that's just the world we live within, where dogma takes form as science, takes form as religious beliefs, and without exception, all manner of belief is an ego-based entitlement to the dominion over reality. Absent observation, absent even having the creative capacity and intellectual bandwidth to visualize the world from the standpoint of a Sigmund Freud, people would just memorize his ideas and thoughts, and then use that as the basis of projecting and ruminating, where even the study of psychology at its highest level produces no mastery. And real enlightenment requires no understanding at all. It's the opposite of understanding. That understanding is the world of ego, compensating for a lack of awareness.